Good morning. Today's the day. Finally, I'm here to talk to you guys about going stoveless on the Pacific Crest Trail. You had a lot of questions about that and I am here to answer them. But let's go outside for this conversation for two reasons. One, I've been home from the PCT for like a month and a half and I'm embarrassed to say that I've been almost fully sedentary that entire time. So it feels like a good day for a walk. And two, I get kind of camera shy just sitting here talking directly to the lens of the camera. So we're gonna go do something and it'll just flow better, I think. Let's go. Yes, I am wearing shorts and a puffy. It's pretty nice out. It's like late fall. We just set the clocks back last week. This isn't really a trail right here behind my house, but it connects. I have to bushwhack over to a trail, and then it's really pretty. We get a lake behind our house. I'll show you when we get there. Anyways, let's talk about going stoveless. Okay, so I'm going to talk about kind of three ways you can do food while backpacking through hiking. Traditional, normal, having a backpacking stove, hot food, or stoveless. I think there's two categories in stoveless, meaning just eating cold food or cold soaking. So I'll kind of explain each, talk about pros and cons, talk about what I did and how that works. So first of all, having a backpacking stove, I'm not going to get way into it. Most of you guys probably know all about it, but having some type of backpacking stove, I have one. I've used one in the past, like a little, I don't know what it's called, a little stove that goes on a fuel canister, and you can eat hot food. A lot of people still eat like cold food during the day mostly and just do like a hot meal at dinner. I've done this before on the Colorado Trail and the Long Trail in Vermont, and then going stoveless. So the more common way to go stoveless is to cold soak your food. That means you would be eating similar food to what people using a stove are eating, but you're soaking it for a longer period of time in cold water till it rehydrates and just eating the meal cold. And then the third way, which I think is probably the least common and what I typically did it on the AT and this trail mostly, is just eating cold food. So not cold soaking at all, just eating kind of like the normal snacks you would eat throughout the day while hiking, just continuing that through dinner. Pros and cons of each. So having a stove, the pros are obviously you get to eat hot food. Yay! This is especially nice when it's cold out. Also, most people that carry a stove say they cannot live without their hot coffee in the morning. I get it. I'm a big coffee drinker. I think it's also a little bit easier in a way to resupply depending on how you're doing the cold food, but pretty easy to just grab a backpacking meal for your dinner each night, or, you know, a ramen or a mashed potato or whatever. Pretty easy to shop resupply wise. The downsides to having a stove, in my opinion, are it takes a while to cook your food. I'm not like a fan. I want to just be able to like bang, 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 fucking sit down, eat my food, and go about the rest of my night. I don't want to like sit around for 20 minutes cooking personally. And then the big drawback I think is the cleanup as well. Hang on before we get too far. Look at this beautiful lake. Anyways, okay, where was I? Oh, the cleanup. So I feel like back in the day, I don't know why, if this has just evolved or what, but I feel like back in the day, everybody used to cook their meal in their pot. And so then when you're done your meal, you have a dirty pot that you have to deal with cleaning. And the leave no trace practice way of cleaning your pot would be the swirl and hurl, where you add some water in it, use your dirty fingers to like kind of wipe out, and then drink the water. This is what I did on the trails that I used a stove on. And it's kind of gross. I'm not gonna lie. These days, it seems more common to cook your, or to cook your water, to boil your water in your pot and then dump it into either, if you have a backpacking meal, they usually come in bags that can withstand the boiling water, or some people put their meal into like a freezer Ziploc bag or whatever. So you're cooking your meal in that, so there's no cleanup of the pot, which is nice, but then you have this dirty bag with gross, like, just the little bits of dinner left over that you're now putting in your trash and carrying that. I'm not a huge fan of that. Another downside to the stove is getting fuel. So you're inevitably going to run out of fuel from time to time. You got to be really like aware of how much you have left. There's not really a good way to tell other than to just shake it And the more experience you have having a stove, the more you like learn if you've got enough to make it to the next town. And then when you do run out, you need to find more fuel. So they don't typically sell fuel at just like a normal grocery store or gas station. You may have to go to a hardware store or like an outfitter or something. And lastly, the weight of having stove, fuel, and pot and spoon. Depending on what you're doing for cold food, it can be a little bit on the heavier side. So those are all the downsides of having a stove. I'm sure you already know that. Anyways, moving on to stoveless. First, let's talk about cold soaking pros and cons. So cold soaking, you do not have the weight of having the stove, the fuel, and the pot. Most likely you're probably going to have some type of really lightweight cold soaking container. Some people use a peanut butter jar or a Talenti jar, or they actually make like cold soak containers now. You'll probably still have a spoon. Similar to hot food, you're going to have an easier time probably like doing your resupply, finding things to shop for because you're eating the same kind of meals. You don't have to worry about running out of fuel. The downside, cold soaking, depending on what you're soaking, can take a very long time. Like rice type things, pasta, like macaroni type things are going to take a really long time to rehydrate. So some people are like, while they're still hiking, adding water to their meal. The cold soak jars, the whole point is that you have a screw on top so the water doesn't come out while you have it in your backpack or something, rehydrating while you're finishing your hiking day. And then when you get to camp, it's ready to go. So it's not really, you don't necessarily have to like sit around and wait for it to rehydrate, but it does take time and you have to plan for that. And then while it's rehydrating, you're technically carrying more weight because you've added the water to it already compared to somebody who's just cooking hot food at camp. They're not carrying that water, assuming that they're getting it at camp. Anyways, and then you still have the whole swirl and hurl cleanup situation with cold soaking because you've got your jar, so after you finish eating you got to clean that out. And then lastly, what I did mostly was just cold food, so no cooking, no cold soaking, just like I said earlier, the food that you would eat throughout the day normally while hiking is what I would continue to eat into the night. So beef jerky or tortilla wraps or peanut butter, things like that. So pros and cons. Pros, super simple. Don't need to worry about buying fuel. Don't have to carry stove, pot, all those things. Don't have to sit there and wait to cook or think about rehydrating. Don't have to clean up. Easy, 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 and quick. I loved it. Downsides. The weight. It's not necessarily as weight saving as you would think. You're not carrying a stove, pot, fuel, all those things, but you're also not carrying like the very lightweight, freeze-dried, dehydrated dinners either, like you would be still if you were cold soaking. So, for example, instead of carrying ramen, I might be carrying like peanut butter, which is much heavier than ramen. And tortillas are heavy. So, it could be weight saving, but it just depends on what you're eating and how you do it. The other downside is I do think it actually complicates resupply a little bit. I have to like really work to get a little more creative to have some variety. If I'm doing like tortilla wraps, then I'm buying a pack of 10 tortillas and I only have 4 days. So am I throwing away 6 tortillas or am I carrying the extra weight of them to carry me over to the next resupply? Like, I just feel like it's a little more complicated rather than just buying mac and cheese. So, as I always say, there's not like a right or wrong option. It's just kind of whatever your preferences, what aligns for you. You might want to try and experiment with both. I've done it all, and I just love the simplicity of not carrying a stove. Do I miss my hot coffee in the morning? Yes and no. I love coffee, but I love my coffee with oat milk, and so just black instant black coffee is just not... I'd rather just not have coffee. Or on this trail, I did end up including coffee towards the end of the trail a little bit. I just did cold coffee and I mixed a hot chocolate packet in it. And that was fine. As far as coffee goes, like, I feel like just the energy I get from being outside, I mean, that's serious, is like enough to get me going in the morning. And also when I go into town, it's like, feels like the biggest treat to like get to town and find a coffee shop and get a nice coffee. A nice coffee. I said not an iced coffee. I think one of the biggest things that people are like confused about or intimidated by or don't understand or something is like, what the heck do you eat? Like, even on trail with other thru hikers, if I mention that I'm Stoveless but I don't cold soak, they're like, I don't get it. Like, what do you eat? So, let's run through a bunch of things that I would normally carry and consume on trail. And obviously everybody's food preferences are different, but maybe this will give you some ideas to make it more tangible. So for breakfast, we'll just go chronologically. Sorry for all the leaf crunching, by the way, that time of year. Okay, breakfast. I just kept it simple on the PCT. I really just did like a bar usually. Like, I like those like Cliff nut-filled ones. Something like that. Some people do like Pop-Tarts or a muffin, or I went through a phase where I was doing the Bear Claws, the like almond things. I mean, none of that is necessarily super healthy, but it is what it is on trail. I guess I should talk about that at the end too, like the nutrition side of things. But yeah, something easy like that. For a while when I was like really hungry in the Sierra, I would just eat peanut butter for breakfast, like literally just peanut butter with a spoon. It just felt like it filled me up and held me over for a while. So yeah, just easy. In the past, if you want something more exciting than that, ideas, on the Appalachian Trail, I did cold oatmeal in the morning, where I would do an oatmeal packet, a breakfast essentials packet, because that made me feel like I was getting some nutrients. So I'd do like a vanilla one of those, and then sometimes I'd add like dried fruit or nuts or something to it. So that was nice. It definitely felt like more substantial and exciting, I suppose. But as I've mentioned, I'm simple, minimal. I decided after the AP, I didn't feel like dealing with all that fuss in the morning. I'd rather just eat a bar quick and go. My arm is getting tired. Lunch/snacks throughout the day stuff. So probably just eating the same stuff you are, to be honest. Let's see, some staples for me are peanut butter crackers. I like a beef jerky or a meat stick kind of thing. Some type of fruit snacks, fruit strip, something that in my head is like not actually candy and slightly healthier. Some type of nuts usually. I love the salt and vinegar almonds, but some types of nuts or trail mix. What else? I definitely did do a lot of candy as well. When you're through hiking, you just need the calories, right? It is what it is. So I love like Rice Krispie treats, the home style ones specifically, and then actual candy. So I would do, a payday was my thing most of the PCT. Most people do Snickers, sometimes Nerd Clusters, whatever. You mix it up, but shit like that. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I would do during the day. I mean, some people like do the full tortilla wrap thing for lunch. So if you're just looking for ideas, I didn't ever do that during the day, but yeah, you could do a tortilla wrap with peanut butter or tuna fish or whatever you want. Get creative. I just like to keep it like quick and easy throughout the day. And then the majority of the trail, I was getting into camp on the earlier side, like 3, 4, 5 o'clock. I like to get into camp early so I can have time to relax and do my video editing. So I like to have a snack kind of as a little treat for first getting to camp before I'm ready to have dinner. So that was usually some type of chips. My staple chip on this trail was the chili cheese Fritos. Fritos are like really high in calories and they don't crumble so much, but any kind of chip. I like sour cream and onion chips. That would be kind of my like snack when I get into camp. And then dinner. This is where it differs the most for most people who have a stove. So like I sort of already said, I would do usually a tortilla wrap. I've never been like a tuna fish or Spam person. I don't want that kind of trash in my bag, but I did discover early on in the PCT that they have like the beef creations packets now, kind of like the single serving tuna packets. And so I would make myself a taco. I'd bring cheese, have the beef creations, and then I would take those chili cheese chips and like crunch those and put that in the wrap as well. So I did that for, most of the trail. On the Appalachian Trail, I did a peanut butter wrap. So I would do a tortilla, peanut butter, dried fruit, and honey. That was kind of my staple the whole trail. But you can do all different variations. I mean, I've done like peanut butter and a strawberry Pop-Tart. So it's like a peanut butter and jelly. Or packed out like pepperoni and cheese and like a mayo packet or something. Like you can get creative. I just tend to be fine with doing the same thing over and over. But I mean, really, you can put anything in a tortilla. here and there, instead of a tortilla, I packed out like a bagel or an English muffin or some other thing like that just to mix it up. At the end of the trail, Jolly and Jabba turned me on to cold soaked mashed potatoes. So that was just the last few weeks. I just thought it was very easy. You go to your store, there's like all different flavors of mashed potatoes, instant mashed potatoes, and you just buy one pack for dinner every night. And I didn't have to think about counting tortillas and all that, so I got kind of lazy at the end. I've mentioned I'm not a fan of cold soaking, but the mashed potatoes are like instant. You add water, you don't have to wait at all. And so at first I was just doing this in the actual packaging that the instant mashed potatoes come in, which is a little tricky to like mix it up in the bag without spilling it, but it just made it easy. I didn't have to have a cold soak container or anything like that. Then when Jolly left, he left me his cold soak container. So it was like a little tiny container, and that did make it a little bit easier to mix and eat out of, but then I did have to clean it. But the mashed potatoes, you can almost eat all of it. Like, it's not a super messy food, so it wasn't a big deal. But I did technically cold soak there at the end. And then after dinner, I would usually have some type of dessert, so I really mixed that up this time. Actually, no, if I could ever find like nice, good, like big cookies, I would do cookies for my dessert. But any type of candy, chocolate bar. Nutella was huge for me on the Appalachian Trail. I pretty much got Nutella every single resupply. I couldn't get enough. And I did do Nutella sometimes on this trip, but it wasn't as much of a staple. Oh, but a fun thing with that was I decided to make it more exciting. You know, in the grocery store, in the like baking aisle, they'll have like shredded coconut. So I would get my Nutella and add shredded coconut to it, just dump it in the Nutella jar and eat that. Sometimes I even added other things. I think I found like a cookie granola once that was really good in that. And that was good because I could just get a smaller jar of Nutella, but by adding stuff to it, I could like stretch it out for longer, you know, 4 or 5 days. So that was fun. This trail behind my house, you can kind of make like a loop, so I just gotta go up the road a little bit and then back in the woods. That's to just give you some ideas, I guess, of cold food. I gotta be honest, I'm not that creative. Like, some people pack out all kinds of stuff and mix it up all the time. Like, I'm just very, I don't know, I get my routine, find what works, and I stick to it, and that's it. And I don't mind repetitive. Ooh, back in the woods. So I don't know. Hopefully that gave you some ideas. Lastly, I guess we'll just talk about how that worked for me. A lot of people want to know, like, would I go Stoveless again? And maybe a little bit about just the junk food and what it's like, that kind of nutrition on trail, or lack of nutrition, I guess. First of all, like, would I go Stoveless again? Did I regret that choice? No. I mean, I did have a lot of experience going Stoveless in the past because I did it the whole Appalachian Trail. And then I did have something to compare to because I did use a stove on smaller trails after that. And then decided to go back to being Stoveless. So I knew fully what I was getting into. I guess the only relevant concern I had was the Sierra. I did have my stove sort of on standby at home that I could have had Luke send it to me if I changed my mind. And I was wondering, I guess, will I change my mind when I get to the Sierra and I'm in like wintry, snow, cold environment? And so a couple things about that. One, no, I ended up not regretting it all. In fact, I was very grateful that I was Stoveless because when it was really cold and miserable out, I understand that a hot meal would be nice, but most people aren't cooking in their tent. So you got to get out of your tent. You've got to deal with the whole cooking process, which takes 20 minutes. You're freaking freezing cold doing that. It's hard to like make a lighter work, to light the stove. I know I shouldn't eat my tent. A lot of people get upset about that, but cold food I often just eat in my tent. And so it was nice to be able to just like stay warm and cozy in my sleeping bag and just eat my snacks. and not have to get out of the tent to cook and deal with all of that. It would have been nice, a hot chocolate or something once in a while. But again, I just liked the simplicity and liked being able to stay in my bag and not fuck with all that stuff. But the one thing I will say that felt a little risky about not having a stove is, like, one, it is almost like a survival piece of gear. Like, if you were really in a bad situation and you were really cold, I think a hot drink or a hot meal could save your life. I don't know. Is that true? Am I being dramatic? It is possible that could at least help the situation. And so I didn't have that capability. Did it affect me on this hike? No. The other thing that could have come into play was in the Sierra, where it was all very snow covered. We were restricted on where we could camp, trying to find like dry spots to camp. And so with water sources and camping, whatever, long story short, we ended up camping one night somewhere where we weren't able to get water for whatever reason. And so the boys that I was with, having stoves, could melt snow with their stove if they needed to collect and boil / not sterilize, but whatever, make their water safe to drink. Anyways, I didn't have that capability. I was with other people that had stoves, so I did know that worst case emergency scenario, I could bum off of them, which is never good advice. I'm not advising to do that, and that was never like my plan. Like, oh, I'll just borrow someone's stove. I try to never ever do that, because that's not really fair. But yeah, that one night that I was able to find the area that had some snow melt, so I was able to collect water. But that was just one thing that popped into my head, safety-wise, as far as having a stove. Getting hot temperature through your body and being able to melt snow and have water to drink. But overall, no, I do not regret going stoveless. Yes, I would go stoveless again, for sure. I may use a stove again at some point too. Maybe it just depends on the situation. But that's my overall general thoughts about that. Lastly, I guess, let's talk about nutrition, because some of you guys were absolutely horrified by the food I was eating. I got lots of comments about that. So I don't know how many of those people commenting are familiar with through hiking, but basically when you're hiking 20 to 30 miles a day, back to back days, carrying a 30-pound pack on your back, like, you are burning a ton of calories. Now, I'm not a freaking scientist, a nutritionist, so take all of this with a grain of salt, but I think from what I've heard, like, you should be planning that you're going to be burning like 3,000 to 5,000 calories a day. And so you need to be like consuming that much just to like maintain and have the energy to do what you're doing. So I think a normal diet is supposed to be like 1,800 calories a day for the average person. So you're trying to consume way more than that, like double that. Now, on top of that, you're also out in the woods where you don't have refrigeration or whatever, and so you're kind of limited on the food you can eat to being like processed food mostly. You could pack out fruit, that'd be great, or vegetables, but the weight to calorie ratio is just not enough. You're going to be carrying like really heavy food that's not providing enough calories for you to do the shit you're trying to do. So, long story short, you're kind of stuck eating a lot of crap food, which in theory wouldn't feel good and isn't healthy, but you're doing so much activity that I think you're just kind of like burning through that sugar and calories all day. Is it good to be consuming mostly sugar and crap all day? Probably not. But in this situation, that's just what you do. I'm not saying there's no other options. Like when I used to hike with Evan, he does like a very keto style diet. I wouldn't call it healthy. I mean, he's living on cheese, cream cheese, Spam, and shit like that, but he didn't consume a ton of sugar. So there are ways to vary your diet a little bit if you want. But overall, it's just unhealthy crap, but you're just gonna burn through it anyway. Is stoveless less healthy than cooking food? Maybe. Some of those backpacking meals, like especially these days, there's more options. Some of them probably are trying to be healthier and incorporate more like vegetables and stuff in it. Like I wasn't getting much for vegetables, I suppose. But I mean, when I had a stove, I was eating mac and cheese every night because I love mac and cheese. So like a peanut butter wrap or a taco wrap, is that way worse than eating a bag of mac and cheese? I don't think so. People get very worried about protein, but I don't know, I eat lots of peanut butter, nuts, beef jerky. I did not calorie count. I'm not protein counting. I'm very like chill about that stuff. I just go with like what I'm feeling. I eat when I'm hungry. I eat what I want when I'm hungry. And I just feel like that's fine for me. Maybe that doesn't work for everybody. There are definitely plenty of people out there calorie counting. Like, guys tend to lose a lot more weight, so you have to be a little more conscious and maybe like force yourself to eat more. I never felt like I had to do that. Maybe I could have used more protein and then my legs would have gotten stronger and I could have kept up with Jackson and Indy possibly in the Sierra. I don't know. But overall, I just do what I feel I want and is right for me in the moment. Very intuitive. And then lastly, to that point, I guess, when I go into town, I would like to say that I'm more conscious when I get to town of trying to like overconsume fruits and vegetables in town to sort of make up for the nutrients or lack of nutrients. And sometimes I would do that, get salads and fruit, but oftentimes when I get to town, I'm just like hungry and want a burger or pizza, so I wasn't always great about that either. On the AT, I did incorporate like a daily multivitamin that I had every day, obviously. And like I said, I did the breakfast essentials packets. I don't know. I didn't do any of that this time. I was just like very chill about it. And do I feel like I noticed a difference? Not really. Please, again, don't take nutritional advice from me because that is probably very poor advice, but I'm just sharing what I did and did not do. And what I did not do was pay much attention. So, I think that about wraps this video up. Oh, I guess maybe lastly I'll end with, which I did mention in a past video, but I lost like 4 or 5 pounds on this hike, which is like nothing, but I think, again, I'm generalizing, but I think more for girls. Girls don't tend to lose as much, but body composition does change, so even though I didn't like lose a lot of pounds, like I for sure lost fat and gained muscle and my body looked a lot different. But unfortunately, when you get off trail, after 6 months of eating like that, your body is still like hungry, but now you're not hiking 20 miles a day, so I put like that 4 or 5 pounds right back on after the trail plus some. But we're out for a walk right now, so that's good. I've done like 2.5 miles. It just feels kind of silly after like hiking hard 28 miles every day, whatever, but it's fine. It's better than nothing, right? Just hard this time of year. It's like dark at freaking 4 o'clock. I just want to be on the couch, cozy, eating hearty soups, and yeah, whatever. I go through my phases. Okay, I guess that's gonna wrap up this video. I'm not sure what I'm gonna do for the next one. I think a bunch of you had questions about like my video editing process. I was thinking about doing a video about that, although I know that's kind of niche and maybe a lot of people don't care about that. So let me know what you think, and I hope you have the best day. See you later.